how can you master your emotions so that way you can have an amazing mindset? That is what we are talking about today with therapist and inner wilderness guide, Zoe Gillis. Let's go.
My name is Eva Payne. Welcome to The Flow Life, where we define love as live open, value everything. On this podcast, you are dialed in and set to love. Let's go for a ride.
Good morning, Zoe. Welcome to Set to Love.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Hey, I am so excited to have you. I'm so excited that we connected online and that we're able to have this conversation today. You are just doing amazing work out there, and I would love to just dive into the work you do and why you do it and why it's so important to people out there listening. So if you want to just start off, just telling people a little bit about you and your background and how you got into doing the work that you're doing today.
Sure, absolutely. So I am currently a licensed marriage and family therapist. I've been in private practice for over 10 years in LA, and I specialize in working with creatives. And before that, I got my undergrad in outdoor education. And before that, as a teenager, I did a lot of group therapy. And so I feel like my whole journey has kind of been this traverse back and forth between personal growth and wilderness and the outdoors, and really wanting to find this way to combine the benefits and the healing power that being in nature can have, especially for an extended period of time, with kind of the inner work and self-discovery and reflection that therapy and meditation and mindfulness and all of these things offer. So that's a little bit about my background and and the things that I love. Like, really, it's just been a journey to follow all of my passions.
Isn't that the way that I would love if more people would do that? Like, it looks like you took several aspects of things that you really love and combined it into creating this profession and way of showing up in the world, doing what you love.
Yeah. And I think about that a lot, in that I feel, on the one hand, I feel really, really lucky that I have had these different passions. Like, as a teenager, I mean, it started really when I was a teenager, and I had a lot of difficulty in my family. I come from divorced parents, and I grew up with my dad on the East Coast and my mom on the West Coast, and step parents. And so I was in group therapy when I was younger, and it just completely changed my life to have a community of people where they were offering me feedback and insight into how I could grow and just be a better friend. And that I knew that feedback was coming from a place of love. That just sparked a passion for me. And so everything that I did, I always wanted to have that component in what I was doing. And so I went on this journey, and I think it's so wonderful to find passions and then be able to pursue those for your career. But I also think sometimes that's not possible. Mm-hmm. And I think about that even in my own journey, in my own practice. Like, there's elements of running a business that, aren't necessarily my passion. And I think that's, right? Like, and I think having a mindset also of going, okay, even if something isn't absolutely my passion, how do I find the joy in it? How do I, and yes. I mean, I think that applies to backpacking, where there's moments where it is not fun. It's really hard. And it's like, okay, so even in those moments when maybe you're not doing the that you love, how do you?
Oh wait, I lost you. Hold on, you're muted. Wait, you're muted. There you go. Nope.
Okay. The mic.
There you are. There you are. Okay.
Okay.
Oh no,
okay.
No.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
Okay. So you're saying even in those moments, like doing the hard things.
Yes. Even in those moments, doing the hard things. Sorry, I'm
No, you're
having
fine. You're
technical
fine. Hey,
difficulties.
this is it goes this
Can you
way.
see me?
No, I lost you.
Okay, hold on. Let's see.
I can hear you,
Okay.
but I can't see you. Oh, I can see you. There.
Okay. Sorry about that.
It's all good. It's all good. It happens.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
so
yeah, so
okay.
keep
I
going.
mean, it kind of even relates to this
Yes,
moment. Like,
exactly.
right? Like things are going to happen that don't feel in alignment, that are not like the
Mhm.
best moments. And it's not that we, I mean, of course we do the things to try to not have that happen, but it's impossible. Like life throws us curveballs, and it's really about how we deal with it and how we move through those. Um, and yeah, so
So let's talk about that then. What does doing hard things or being in nature or doing the backpacking or what is it about being out there that challenges us in these ways that does help our mindset?
So I just want to say first
Yeah.
that just like anything, uh, not everything is for everyone, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so I just say that because I think sometimes people, and I know I've had this experience where someone is talking about something and then I feel bad that I don't actually like, maybe I should push myself to like it more.
Mm.
And so really I'm speaking to people who already have a love for maybe hiking or camping, and they know that that's something they have, um, that sparks them and lights them up,
Mhm.
and then taking that further to use that as a way to grow. And so what I think going into those situations offers, which you can find in other places, but I think the beautiful part of nature is that it really allows us to disconnect. One of my lines that I love is disconnect to reconnect.
Mm.
And so it offers this space to put down social media, to not be around mirrors,
Mhm.
which I think as
Mhm.
women is a really powerful experience, um,
Mhm.
and to really rely fully on yourself or the people that you are on the trip with. Because you can only, especially with backpacking, you only have what you can carry on your back. And so things get really simplified. And there my experience is that with every trip there is something that happens, whether it's weather or you forget a piece of gear. I was
Right.
recently on a solo adventure and I forgot my lighter, and so it's, and you know,
That's kind of a
and
big one.
yeah, it's totally a big one. I mean, I have forgotten my sleeping bag before, like I,
Oh
you
my
know,
gosh.
or
Wait,
my
what do you
tent.
do? Okay, just like on this call when it
Yeah,
like kind of goes to like shoot, like you're in there. You're a day in or wherever you might be and you
yes,
realize that it's not going to go as you have planned. And
yes,
this is what you were talking about, right? Like your mindset,
yes,
like being able to go, well, you could cry about it. Like, what are your options at that point? You could,
right,
and is that like how you, what do you do? What goes through your mind when you realize I don't have a lighter? This is like a key component when you go camping. I would
yes,
think, I mean, unless you can like start a fire with just flint and,
right.
some twigs or something, but what do you do in those moments? How do you handle what could be very super stressful moments that would break people and just make them want to quit?
Yes. Yeah. So, one is just problem solving. And
Mhm.
so, and I think in terms of mindset, it's going, okay, looking at what do I have and breathing and going, I'm going to figure this out.
Mhm.
And it may not be perfect, it may not be comfortable. The lighter actually was somewhat of an easy fix. I was on a solo adventure, and uh, what was more challenging for me is there was people around, and so I was able to ask somebody. But I was
Mm.
surprised at, uh, there was some fear that came up for me with approaching a group that I didn't know. And usually, I don't know, I'm pretty outgoing and social, and in the world I talk to people, but There was something about, I think it was at night, and everybody's in their own kind of camping spot, and it's very spread out. It was backpacking, so it's not like a campground.
Mhm.
Um, but then I was just so grateful that I had other people around me. And it made me think of our interdependence. Um,
Mhm.
I think a more challenging time was when my sleeping pad popped, which is what you sleep on when you go
Right.
backpacking.
Yeah.
And I didn't have the stuff, the stuff to patch it had like dried up and didn't work. So I had to sleep in my hammock, and I just like piled all my clothes down, and I think it was cold, right? Like it was a cold night's sleep. But I was okay. And I think too, there are moments, like you said, sometimes you just want to cry. What keeps you from crying? And there
Mhm.
have been moments where I have cried on a trip, and or thrown rocks into the lake because I'm
Mhm.
so frustrated. But one of the things that I do also love about being in nature is that it feels like it's this vast, vast container. And that no matter how big my emotions are, it can hold that. Like Mother Earth can hold that. And so if I need to sit and cry, or like I said, throw rocks into the lake, that's there's space for that. And then I can regroup and
Mhm.
see what the next step is and how to keep going, and one foot in front of the other. And that's the same thing with hiking. In challenging moments, it's like, okay, just focusing on the ground, focusing on the gravel beneath my feet, and walking one step at a time. And often then working with what I'm telling myself as I'm continuing to hike, whether it's you got this, or you're going to feel so good when you get there, or focus on the clouds. Whatever it is, there's a way that I'm continuously working with helping myself move forward.
I love that. So let me talk about how you help other people. So I know for me, when I hiked the Grand Canyon, I was that person that guide was probably like, yeah, she should not have come on this. She was the one,
Mm,
like how you started off with the disclaimer of it's not for everyone. Like didn't particularly enjoy hiking at the time. I should say that because I didn't really know any different. I had never done
oh,
anything like that. So I didn't think I would enjoy it. And it was very, very hard. But
yeah.
what do you do when you have someone who maybe just says to you, yeah, okay, I'll come. And they're not really prepared, or they don't really understand like how much this is going to take out of them? How do
Yeah.
you help someone like get through when they're in that state of crazy town or despair, or have you had that before? Or most people who come, are they like, yeah, let's go, and it's all honky dory?
Well, I'll say, I'm going to give two different examples. And the first, I'm going to talk about the retreats that I've led, the backpacking trips that I've led.
Okay.
So far, everyone who has come on the trips that I've led, I've never had that experience, but I don't think it's because people don't come scared, or I had two women who were on the trip who were in their late 60s, early 70s. And we did a backpacking trip in the Sierras, and they had never been backpacking before.
Mm,
But I make sure that when we're backpacking, so I have a trip coming up, and everybody on the trip, nobody has been backpacking before. So
wow.
often the trips are for people who are beginner but are interested in learning how to backpack. And we go at a pace that is making sure that nobody is left really far behind. Because it feels awful when you're like way in the back and you're trying to keep up, and then you get up there and everybody's already rested, and then they're like, okay, we're going, and you're like, oh
Oh,
my god, we just got
that was exactly my experience,
yeah,
Zoe. Like, I was an hour behind everyone, and we finally got to the rest stop to eat, and they had already been there for an hour, hour and a half, like waiting.
yes,
And I just said, just go. Like,
yeah,
I need my
yeah,
hour. And so
yeah,
they were just always ahead, which was fine because for me, I felt bad holding everyone back because I was so much slower than everybody in the group.
yeah,
Yeah, it was definitely like, yeah, that was a lot
yeah.
of lessons learned, I'll say that.
Yeah. And so that's the thing, like that would never happen on a trip I'm running, because the goal is not just to get to the
And
destination. The goal is to have an experience together along the way. And
mhm.
so that's just a difference in the way that I run trips. It's yes, it's about the backpacking, but it's about being able to walk mindfully, support each other, have moments to journal, have moments to
Mhm.
process what's happening, I just make sure that doesn't happen while we're hiking. So that's in terms of the trips that I run, where everybody signs up,
Yeah.
fully willing. I also was a wilderness guide in Canada for multiple years, working with youth at risk. And so
Mhm.
that program, although the participants agreed to come, they really were mainly coming because their parents were wanting them to be there. And so I know that there's some programs, for example, in the States where people are taken against their will, teenagers.
Mhm.
Um, and so it was different than that. Nobody showed up without knowing that they were going, but they still were teenagers who were having troubles in their life. And
Right.
so the way that I worked with that, because yeah, that some of them were just like, it wasn't their thing, but they were there to learn and grow. And I just,
How did they
I
do? Like, were they was it hard at first, and then at the end, they're like, "That was the best thing ever," or what was that experience like for them?
oh my gosh, it was the best. Yes, it often was like that. And I just have these memories of these two boys that I worked with, and they'd always be trying to like escape together and like, but it's like there's nowhere to go. We're in the middle of like the backcountry in on Vancouver Island, which is like the best. You're like, okay, they'd be like, I don't care about the gear, and then we go and then it'd be raining and they didn't have their rain jacket. It's like, well, I don't have to enforce any rules. If you don't want to bring your gear, then you're going to be cold and wet. Like, as long as you're safe. Um,
That's a natural
and so,
consequence right there.
yes, exactly.
That's what I would tell my
Exactly.
children.
Yeah. Natural. Exactly. And so I think, yeah. And I will say that program, oh my gosh, I loved working there. And it was ran by a husband and wife, and it was in this beautiful property in Canada. And many of the participants that I worked with came back and worked as leader in training. So yeah, they came and they were like, I can't believe that I have to be here. And then by the end, they learned and grew so much and just enjoyed the councils around the fire and the beauty and being able to have a place where they were respected and there was space for them to talk about what was hard. So I think that that's really healing and transformational for people.
Oh,
So
absolutely. I know it was for me for sure. I was going through a divorce at the time, and my intuition just said, just go do it. Just
yeah,
do something different, try
yeah,
something, be courageous. Go be
yes,
courageous.
yeah,
And it definitely brought me to like the edge of what I thought was possible for myself.
yes,
And then I kept going. It's almost like David Goggins when he's like,
yes,
you get to the edge and you think, oh, I can't possibly take another step. I can't possibly
yes,
do this for another 10 minutes or 5 hours, or whatever it is.
yeah,
But you realize there is no other option. And
yes,
so you just do it. And then you're like, I'm doing it when I didn't think I can. And it's like getting over this mental hump of
yes,
wherever in life you would usually stop,
yes,
you're not allowed. Like there's no one going to take you out. You have to take
yes,
yourself out. And so you get over that and you realize, oh my gosh, I can do really hard things, and being
yes,
able to bring that back into my everyday life. Like if I can hike the Grand Canyon rim to rim, I can surely figure out this grant, or I can
yes,
surely figure out this difficult conversation, or I can,
yes,
whatever it is, because I did something so physically challenging and mentally.
and
Um,
mentally, yeah.
yeah, it was definitely a mental challenge. Let me ask you, on these hikes, when you're with the women and you say you stop and you journal and you do things, like, what is the structure? Outside of just the challenge of being in nature and connecting with it and packing your stuff in and out. Like, what are some of the programs? What are some of the things that you're focusing on or working on while they're on these excursions with you?
Yeah, so I would say, I mean, this is very broad, but I would say mindfulness and self-compassion.
Mm.
So I recently completed a 2-year mindfulness and meditation teacher certification. So I've been bringing in that passion. But an example of that is, so often we can overthink things or get stuck in a spiral and loop thought. And so one of the things that we practice is being able to notice what your thoughts are
Mm.
and then come back to an anchor, which is either the breath or while you're walking your feet. And that really helps build the muscle of being able to recognize when you're getting lost in obsessing about something or
Mhm.
ruminating about something, and recognizing that, and then being able to wisely put it down because you recognize that it's actually not helping you, that it's spinning you out into more anxiety.
Can I
Um,
ask you, how do you,
yeah.
I think when you're not really even aware, it's one thing to say be aware, but when
Yes.
you don't know how to be aware, how do we do that? How does someone who isn't even, do you help them point it out? Do you say, oh, the language you're using right now, and help them, or can you see it on their faces? Or how do you make someone aware of to be aware? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Okay. I
absolutely.
know that sounded
And
confusing.
I would say practice, and that's where uh, some sort of meditation or intentional mindfulness practice, so that so for example, we do meditations on the trip, and uh, I mean, so even right now, if you just slow down and listen to the silence and maybe feel your breath. And that's just a practice of being aware, right? Of really connecting and zoning your attention in to what's
Mm.
happening right now. And
Mhm.
that's a muscle. That is a muscle, and so the more we practice it, the better we get, and then it tends to spread out into daily life, not just like if you train for a marathon, like you have your training and then you have the event. And I think we have the training ground where we practice being present, noticing what's happening, and then we have our life that we live, and the more we practice, the more it comes into our life.
Mm. I love that. What do you do with the awareness once you know it? So let's say I'm on this hike and I'm stressed and my feet hurt and I'm hot, and so there's all these physical things. Or I'm saying in my head, like for example, for me, I kept saying like I suck. Like I kept saying like what was I thinking?
Yeah.
Why did I
Yeah.
think I could do this? So this is what was going on in my mind, and um, yeah, I guess Sarah had asked me, like, what are you thinking right now? She could see I
Yes.
was in
Yes.
stress. And so then, and even that was really hard for me. It was hard for me to actually vocalize. I
Yes.
knew what I was thinking, but to say it out loud
Yeah.
to someone
Yeah.
else, like, this is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that I'm terrible and I'm stupid for coming here and I'm not a good hiker. And I was just like, all these
Yes.
things.
Yeah.
And it was just letting it all come out.
Yeah.
Um, wow. Like even thinking about that now, like it was really therapeutic to be able to
Yes.
share that with someone
Yes.
and vocalize that out loud, because I think we're so quiet with that voice in our head and we don't share
Mhm.
with other people what it is that we're ruminating over, because we don't want to be judged,
Yes.
by it, or we don't
Yes.
think the person's going to understand, or worse, maybe they're going to agree. Like,
Or
yeah, you're
judge.
right.
Yeah.
You should not have come
Totally.
on this thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I think so I also run groups, and I've been running groups for over 10 years, and yet the power of being in community, because it's amazing to watch that so many of us hold the same fears, or maybe it's a different version. For one person it's I'm gonna be judged, but one person is I'm gonna be judged for being stupid. The other is I'm going to be judged for being weak. And to be able to be held in community and voice that is so, so powerful. And so I think, and then in that moment you did recognize it, and then that's also where the self-compassion can come in. And sometimes I think there's a mistake. There's so many nuances to self-compassion. Just like with yoga, there's like the yin yoga and the yang yoga, which is kind of the softer and then the harder. And that's true with self-compassion too. Like self-compassion can be like, no, I'm not going to let you talk to me like that. But it can also be really soft and like, oh, I'm sorry. This is really hard right now. This is really hard and it's okay. And I don't need to do anything to change it. It's just, I'm just going to acknowledge that I'm having a hard time.
Wow.
And so I think, yeah, bringing in these different practices. And then inevitably, I mean, I've been backpacking forever, and on every trip, something comes up where I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, this is so hard. Or a fear comes up that, you know, someone's gonna judge me or somehow I don't belong there, and working with that. So
do you ever get nervous on your trips, like before you go? I mean, you've probably been doing it for so long, but before you embark, I know you have a trip coming up with a bunch of women out in Ojai, right? Is that where that one? Yeah. Okay. So I want to hear about that. But my question for you first is, as someone who also kind of runs excursions or retreats or whatever, but do you get nervous? Like, okay, how are these people going to do together, and how's this going to go? And am I all prepared? Do I have everything I need for them? Or are you like, yeah, I got this. Let's go.
Oh my gosh, I wish I was like the second version. I get so nervous, and I think I was thinking about this earlier, how I think one of the things that has I started backpacking when I was 18. I went on an outward bound. And you were talking about the Grand Canyon and how pushing yourself to that limit, and then like you didn't have anywhere else to go and you had to keep going, and that made you actually realize how much more you were capable of.
Yeah.
And I think I've had many of those experiences, and I think because of that, like I'm a big scaredy cat in life. I have a lot of fears, insecurity, anxiety, but I'm incredibly brave. And to me, I think I've developed skill over time to be able to be incredibly afraid or feel really insecure, and to show up anyways, and to keep going anyways, and to love myself anyways, even though I wish I was that person who was like, this is going to be awesome. And I try to cultivate that, but I always feel like I want everybody to have a good time, and I hope that it goes well, and I hope I offer enough, and I am continually working on letting that be okay, and trusting myself, and trusting the process, and letting go of the outcome, and just doing what I can. That is a constant practice for me.
Thank you for sharing that and for being like honest about that. Cause I think it'd be so easy to be like, yeah, I feel really confident, but just to say like, you've done it so much. So at least subconsciously, right? Like, everything's going to be fine, but to be open and honest, like, yeah, and just in life, like we don't know what's right around the corner, right? But we do it anyway. We're brave anyway. We're courageous anyway with our life. We pursue things that will hopefully bring us joy. So let's talk about this one that you have coming up, and like just what you do. So what does that look like? When is it? How do you craft an adventure like this for people?
Oh my gosh, I am so excited about this one. This one, actually, I only have one spot left, and it's coming up in March. But I have another one in October, and my hope is to run this particular trip, which is in Ojai, to these incredible hot springs. It's about 16 miles in. It's a 6-day trip. So we take 3 days to get there and 2 days back. And when you get to these hot springs, it's basically this river that flows hot out of the mountains, and it pools in these different areas. And so you can camp right by a pool and have your own little basically hot tub. And there's a palm oasis. So anyways, that's like the big, reward at the end. But the part of being with the group, it's a really great hike for beginners because it's along the river the entire time, and it's not too much elevation gain. So it's kind of mild up and down, but it is still challenging. And being away for 6 days, like that's a pretty good excursion. And so going through that, and it's been an amazing group of women. And like I said, we just practice those skills of paying attention and developing that capacity to be present and work with your mind, and bring in compassion when those challenging thoughts come in. Yeah.
And what a beautiful just bonding experience. I'm
Oh
sure
my
that
gosh.
with each of those groups that you bring in and out, those people probably stay connected
Yes.
in ways like just beyond, because at least I've experienced that in our summer camps and things that we've run. I mean, the connection that's forged when you're doing something like that kind of an experience together. And it's like you could take people from all different walks of life, all different backgrounds, different ages. It doesn't even matter. It's like you realize people are people, and we all at our core want and desire the same things. And it's just like, it just shows you like how amazing humans are, and just like how loving and caring and compassionate, and we all just want connection and all of that. And so to be able to have that experience and bond, it's those women that are going must be so excited, because they just, for them, the nerves of not even knowing like who's going to be there, how it's going to go, and for them, their own journey. But you just got to feel so good. I imagine, and I'm curious from you, and this may be one of the last questions, and if there's anything else you want to share, but what are some of the big takeaways that you've seen from your clients coming out of an experience like this?
I think the biggest one is confidence. And kind of what we've talked about in different ways. I know that's something that sometimes I do camping retreats as well that are just, not backpacking, and no matter whether it's the camping or the backpacking, the experience of people being able to view the world basically from the inside out, right? Through your own experience, and not so caught up in thinking about how we're being perceived. And I think the break from social media, and from even just, like I said, having mirrors constantly around, or our phone to constantly be looking and our attention being pulled. And so, often people talk about how just amazing that break is, and how much like they feel more grounded in their body and confident to make decisions, and like this freedom, and so that's the thing that I hear the most is different versions of that, how they feel more confident and grounded and at peace.
I know for me that was definitely it. I definitely felt more powerful, more confident, that I can do hard things. I was just really proud of myself, even though like I was the last one out and I was so much drama for everyone. I still am like, I did that. And every once in a while I think to myself, maybe I'll do that again one day. Might need a little more training.
You can come on one of my trips and do
I
that.
do. I know. I'm like, I could do Zoe's trip. I could probably do that. Although I think I can do it. And then I'd get there and I'd be like, man, what was I thinking?
Yes. You absolutely will have a moment like that. Like there will definitely be a moment, because it doesn't matter how much focus there is on making sure that everybody is supported and not like left behind. It's challenging. It's hard. Like you have weight on your back and you're hiking, and it can be hot at times, or sometimes it's raining. And so and
is there
it's beautiful.
Water along the way? Do you just drink from the river, or do they have like
on this one, there's a river along the whole way, and so we have different filtrations. And I teach about all the different ways to filter water, whether it's like chemicals or using a filter or boiling. So yeah.
Oh, good. Okay. All right.
But
I'm definitely coming on one of your trips. I
yes.
am like,
And
yes.
I want to come on one of your retreats too.
Okay. We'll
Yes.
swap.
Yeah, exactly.
Do a swap. I would love that. I would honestly, I've been like, it's been on my bucket list. Like I've used that backpack one other time, and that was to hike and to Havasu Pai. But the hike down to Havasu Pai was only, I think, 6 miles or something like that. And so it wasn't, I was still very slow with my one son who was really slow also.
Yeah.
How many miles do you do a day? You said 16 miles. Is it one way 16 miles?
Yeah. So this particular trip is an out and back. So so it's 16 miles to the hot springs, and then we have to hike the 16 miles back.
Yeah.
So the first 3 days, it's broken up into about 4 to 5.5 miles a day. And then the last 2 days, which is not bad. Yeah. And then the last 2 days are 7 to 8 miles. So
Okay,
so
not bad, not bad.
but you've eaten a lot of your food by then, and you've had a rest day. So it's like the last 2 days is like, okay. Yeah.
Oh yeah, hiking out of that Grand Canyon, there was like the option to put whatever you wanted on the mule, you know, and like send it up with the mule. And so my friend and I, we were like, all I had in my backpack was snacks and water. Like I got rid of everything else because I thought I'm barely going to be able to carry myself out. I do not need anything extra in my pack. So I paid the whatever $50, $100, you know, like we shoved everything in a bag, and it met us at the end. So I'm sure like having that lighter pack, it would probably be easier coming out at the end. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for you.
Yeah, that's such a lesson too with backpacking, because there's no mule. And so it's going, okay, what do I actually really need? And learning, and that's a process that happens over time. But I just wanted to say that part too.
Yeah, no, you know what? My big takeaway was clip your toenails. Like you need to have.
Yes.
I mean, they weren't like that long, but one of them was digging into my other toe, and I didn't even realize it because, you know, there's pain everywhere. So you're just like, my feet hurt. And then I would take my socks off, and I was bleeding, and the one toenail had like dug into my side of my toe, and then I had blisters on the back of my feet.
Oh yeah.
Oh, and then I stepped in the water at one point, and this was my shoes and socks were wet, and then I had wet shoes and socks. And that's hard to walk in. It's just so many lessons learned.
Yeah. Yes.
But see, here I am like, I would do it again. I would want it because there was so much learned. And now that with that mindset, and that's been a couple years, I feel like I've worked on my mindset. So it would be a good experience to challenge that. Like, have I really?
Yes.
You think you have, but let's come on out and see like really where you are. Let's gauge that in the real wilderness out here and see how it is.
Exactly. I like
Zoe, thank you so much. You say that again? Wait, go ahead.
I just said what you were describing, I like to call type 2 fun. In the moment, it's not that fun, but then after you accomplish it, you're like, oh, actually, I kind of liked that.
Yeah, that's like having a baby.
There you
like
go.
afterwards, you're like, okay, I guess I could do that again. But in the moment, you're like, I am never. Why did I ever sign up for this? I love it. How can people get in touch with you or find you, learn more about you and the experiences that you're putting together, or just get follow you and get some tips from you?
Yeah, absolutely. So my Instagram is Zoe Gillis MFT. That's like marriage and family therapist. So that's my Instagram, and that's kind of the best way to follow me. And then my website is zoegillis.com. So you can always find out about trips and what I have coming up there. Yeah.
I love it. Thank you so much for being on the show today, and good luck. And just like, when do you leave? Like just a month now, right? Like a little bit less than a month. Is that next trip? Did you hear me? Oh, did I lose you? Oh, I think I lost you. Okay. All right. Hold on one second. Yeah, you're good. Hold on. Thanks everyone for being here today. I appreciate you. And Zoe's trip, she's got one spot left, so you better snag it if you can. And we'll talk to you soon. Thanks for being here on Set to Love.